All right, everyone. I am live here with Baked Alaska, who lately has been, in a very long-suffering sense, dealing with some significant repercussions for speaking his mind. So welcome aboard here, Baked.
Hey, how's it going, man?
So let's describe for anyone who's not 100% sure, who's not paying attention to things, what exactly happened lately with regards to strikes and also to your stream, because I know we had been speaking, and people should hear this, and was going to come aboard your stream, I believe, to speak with other people as well. Obviously, that's kind of on hiatus. It's a plan in action still. But if you could describe basically what happened.
Yeah, so I've been doing, okay, so I got banned from Twitter permanently for my lifetime for unknown reasons. I don't really know why. It sort of happened around the same time that Jared Taylor got banned, and he's suing Twitter now, which I think is actually a really good step that people need to start putting these tech companies in their place as far as being free to everyone. But as far as YouTube went, so I got banned from Twitter, and then I started making these sort of blood sports debates. I'm sure you've seen, Andy Worski and Tonka Saw, and Mr. Medicare actually did a video about all the sort of different styles of blood sports. And it became pretty wildly popular, actually, and people really enjoyed the sort of polarizing guests I brought on. I was able to get Tariq Nasheed and Jared Taylor on the same stream debating race realism, and they're kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. So to me, I find this incredibly fascinating. And a lot of my fans actually, they're not all right wing. There's people that are left wing. There's people that are centrist. And I like to let both sides, say their piece. So I had Andrew Anglin, the founder of the Daily Stormer, and Sargon of Akkad on, and I thought everything was fine. And then about 2 weeks after that happened, so when the video was first put up, I think my account somehow, it just automatically goes to yellow on the monetization, which means, if you guys don't know, limited or no ads. So I have to manually review every single video just because most of them go green after that. But after I did a manual review, the YouTube team reviewed the video and they made it green. So it was completely green lit manually. And so it was good for 2 weeks. And then I looked at the video a couple days ago and it said it was yellow. And then it went to age restricted without any notice. And then all of a sudden someone messaged me and they're like, hey, that video is gone from your page. And I looked at my YouTube account and it said, this video has been removed for hate speech, and you have a 3-month ban from live streaming, which is my bread and butter. That's my income right now. So yeah, that was pretty disheartening to see. I'm staying positive for sure, but it seems that I have been a pretty frequent target of the tech state right now.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that. It's been time and time again. There are a certain number of people that pop up as far as being involved with being censored. And it's never the groups that you would expect to be. It's yourself, Cernovich would be part of that, certain other people. It's not the core of people that are really truly out there in their beliefs like you would think. You go to YouTube, you look up Brother Nathaniel. Now what's his thing? All he does is talk about Jewish people. That's literally the only purpose of his channel. He's got videos in limited state, but he's still there. As far as I know, he has no content strikes whatsoever. And yet I'm hearing people that they make a pro Second Amendment spiel, or they fire their gun on video. That gets put in limited state. It gets set to restricted mode, at least demonetized, sometimes taken down. Now, the latest thing is in the wake of Parkland. People who are criticizing individuals who at this point, I would think, legally speaking, are more or less spokespeople for.
Don't say his name.
Exactly.
Do not say his name.
I don't even dare say their names on video or on stream. Exactly. They can look it up. But I'm not going to say their names because it seems like simply saying their names gets you banned for bullying or something. It's so somebody is making a policy proposal. I can't criticize it using their proper name. They could call me Sticks or Tarl or whatever and say that they think that I suck. That's okay, but the fact is it doesn't work in the other direction. Also, and I mentioned this to you, we saw earlier actually that a noted left-wing individual, or at least left in the sense of total anti-Trumper, literally sharing out like impeachment petitions. It was German Bruin earlier got his account removed as well. His account is on YouTube is completely gone. All he had done is refute ethno-nationalism. The fact is that the title or the tags or what he said simply referred to, far right. I know that's not necessarily always true. It's not a true overlap. But that style of content, his videos simply responding to and refuting it were also removed. And I thought that that was interesting. Did you notice, have you noticed, I mean, obviously you're being censored, maybe mistreated by YouTube, right, Twitter, whatever. Have you noticed it being an incline over time? Like as far as monetization, restricted mode, anything like that? Has it spiked recently, or has it been sort of slow increments over time, insofar as how it's increased, at least in your case?
Well, it's definitely increased in the last, I would say in the last year. I think it has increased. If you look at YouTube 2 years ago, it wasn't as PC. I know we were talking before the show, there's different people like iDubbbz, for example, that use the N-word or different racial slurs in a comedy context. And, nothing has ever happened to them. In my case, and it's sort of hard because I'm hosting debates. So these people can say sort of whatever they want to a degree. I mean, they might cross the line and I'll step in there and say, hey guys, calm down. But I can't read their minds if we're doing a live debate. And all I can do is pretty much bring it back and say, hey, chill here. I guess to me, hosting a debate really isn't fair to get a strike because I'm not even the one saying things. I could understand if they wanted to like demonetize my video, like a certain video, if they didn't like it or if they thought it was age restricted or something like that. But to outright delete the video and give me a 3-month ban from YouTube, I think is completely insane. I mean, it just doesn't and I stand up for people on all sides, right wing, left wing, centrist. Like I actually believe in real free speech. As long as you're not being violent towards anyone or anything like that, I think absolutely you should be able to have your opinion. I think I defend stupid opinions. I defend people that I don't like the Westboro Baptist Church. I think those people are retarded, but I defend their right to free speech because that's what it's for. Free speech was made to protect unpopular speech. I got Ron Paul right here. That was a quote from That was a quote from Ron Paul. I actually have here's me and Alex Jones. I brought a couple little gifts to show you. Me and Alex Jones here. And then also we have me and Nigel Farage, right? So got some pretty legendary stuff.
Yeah, pretty cool, actually. It's actually a really great segue with Alex Jones because InfoWars now, people need to keep this in mind. InfoWars, their official channel now has 2 strikes. They get another, and we go into a little bit of, I think, unprecedented territory. Is YouTube willing to remove a multi-million-dollar media corporation's page, 2.3 million or so fans, plus Paul Joseph Watson's own fan base, which is separate? Are they willing to actually remove their ability to have a YouTube channel because of unpopular, I guess, I won't use the physical term, but actors of a certain sort related content? I think it's going to be interesting to actually see what they do. It's sad. It's sad that we have to literally watch what we say on a platform that was built by Tourette's guy and people doing the craziest things possible years and years ago. Back when the legacy media, they ignored the platform, said it was inconsequential. And I'm wondering, how long have you actually been YouTubing? Do you remember that wonderful golden period back when copyright was the biggest problem?
I'm actually pretty new to YouTube. I've only been on YouTube for about, I want to say, 1.5 years. I'm pretty new to, as far as like doing consistent. I had an account for like 4 years or something. So before I got into sort of political content, I used to do comedy rap, and I was never called racist. I was never called any sort of names. I was never censored. People really just enjoyed my stuff, or they didn't, but it wasn't really a big deal. And then when I came out as pro-Trump, that's when all the censorship started. Before that, no one really cared about the content I made, even if it was edgy. So I find that pretty interesting. As far as Alex Jones, I think people, I don't agree with everything Alex Jones says, but I think he's super entertaining and he's funny and he does have some truth to what he says. And I think it would be a terrible shame if they banned Alex Jones from YouTube. I mean, he's one of the biggest YouTubers out there right now. He busts his ass. He puts, I think, 6 days a week. He puts out like this 3 to 4 hour show. Like the dude works super hard. You can't really knock his hustle, even if you don't like him. So, that's very troubling to me. I want to make sure some other of the small creators are heard. So Sinatra Says got a strike the same day that I did for making a video about, he was making a live stream about Parkland, and during the live stream they just cut him off. Like I don't think I've ever seen that. Like they literally just pulled the plug on Sinatra Says during his live stream.
Yeah, which shows that there are people that are watching our content that are just looking for a reason to complain at this point. I mean, it basically, there's no way that some random fan of his or some random person that didn't like him was going to waste their time doing that and get heard by YouTube so quickly. It takes them days sometimes to respond to a flagging.
Right. And also, I want to shout out the Red Elephants. They have 2 strikes. And I believe one of their latest strikes was from a video from Berkeley from 8 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's like there's someone at YouTube, I'm allegedly, just like looking through old videos, maybe trying to find some slip up. I don't really know, but I think, the demonetization already hurts creators, as like immensely. So I think that's the best path forward is like, if they really have a big issue with a video, demonetize it. To me, that's still considered sort of a strike. I mean, it sucks. You can't make ad revenue on it. It sort of hurts your workflow. So I say they just do that. What's the problem with having a video if it's getting no ads, if it's age restricted or whatever they want to do, then what's the harm there? They at that point, they're literally just hosting a video that they don't even endorse. Like what's the issue there?
Now, and someone actually, I brought it up here. There are 2 points from chat that we've got to bring up. This actually, one of these was something that I planned to bring up anyway. From Unapologetic Westerner, the censoring will only intensify. I think, yes, definitely. And I think you'd probably agree it's because it is progressing. It's probably not suddenly going to magically get better. I mean, when I express optimism about censorship, not just on YouTube, but other sites. And YouTube is arguably more restrained than like a Twitter or a Facebook, which is hysterical. And when I talk about optimism in that realm, I'm talking about 2 or 3 years ahead. But also, JWolf17 FTW, why is net neutrality trending? Good point. It is very funny. This doesn't touch on net neutrality itself, but isn't it funny how the same people who want net neutrality, they don't want an ISP to be able to throttle bandwidth or ban a site, basically. They have no problem with a domain registrar banning Gab. That they have no problem with a big tech site banning you or like censoring me or some other opinion or some topic. And I'm wondering where the logic is in them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because it seems like they only have a problem with it if it's directed at a business. They don't care if you censor individuals.
Yeah, they don't really care. So basically, the solution that people had said to I'm really sick of hearing this phrase. They say they're a private company. They're a private company. They can do whatever they want. Like, okay, sure. Here's what I would say to that. Every company is a private company, unless it's a government entity. What Twitter is publicly traded. I don't really know that that's a private company. Yeah, it's technically a private company, but it's very much in the public domain. I mean, the most powerful person in our nation, the president of the United States, what's the first thing he does to get his word out? He tweets. So
the first thing he does in the morning, yeah.
Right. So to me, this is sort of equivalent to like a utility company. This is like the post office, or he's sending out a pigeon to, he's out in the town square saying, hello, everyone, this is what's on my mind today. That is what it's sort of equivalent to. So they have said over and over, oh, it's private company, just make your own stuff. But then the problem with that is they have a monopoly on all the tech companies, and they're the gatekeepers, literally. So Gab is a perfect example. They're like, okay, we're going to make our own site. You know, Twitter can do their own thing. They can censor people. And they made their own site. And then they're banned from the iTunes store. They can't get on iPhones. They're banned from the Android, the Google Play store. You literally can't get on anywhere. So that making your own technology is not the solution, because I mean, it is, but there's so many things that have monopolies. I like to call it the technocracy. So it's every single tech company out right now is leftist. Like there's no argument on that. And of course, as you did point out, yes, they do even ban some leftists. They ban some centrists, but I think the majority of the people they ban are right-wing people that are pro-Trump, people that are pro-gun, pro-Constitution, as backwards as that sounds. But those are the people they seem to really come after time and time again. But Jared Taylor is doing a lawsuit against Twitter, and I think he makes a really good point that there's sort of a case in the Supreme Court that already was decided, and they basically it was a private company, but they had like a public square, or like some part of their company was considered a public square, and they tried to argue, oh no, this is our company, we can do what I want, but the Supreme Court ruled, well, no, this part of your company is actually affecting the public sphere. You're so much in the public sphere that this actually is the public, and they ruled with the person going against them. So Jared Taylor's using that exact same Supreme Court case. I'm not sure what it's called. You guys can look it up. But I think that is the best way forward. Honestly, I don't see any other choice but to take legal action against these platforms. And I know that sounds extreme, but frankly, I've been banned from PayPal, Patreon, GoFundMe, Periscope, Twitter. I have and those are all lifetime. I got my book taken down from Amazon. And I really don't find myself to be that controversial. I know I have that sort of, I don't know, people think that I'm controversial, but I really don't think that I am that much. I'm just like I said, before this, I did comedy rap. I'm in a Netflix show with Larry Charles coming out later this year about comedians and people that do memes and sort of troll on the internet. Like that's what I enjoy. I'm not like trying to gas people or anything crazy like that.
And that used to be really what grew the internet and made it interesting. I'm wondering at what point are they going to start banning people for hosting like content from Jackass or Howard Stern, or having a clip from Beavis and Butthead. Oh, well, that's sexist. This part, it talks about the disabled in an unkind manner. It's going to be interesting to see, I think, how it progresses. I personally choose to believe that over time they collapse their paradigm. And the reason I think why people on the right primarily are the ones bearing the brunt of it are people that are anti-left. Because, plenty of libertarians have that problem too. And then it's not a full overlap with all aspects of the right, maybe not the nationalistic part all the time. Yeah, I think the reason why is because that's really the counterculture. The old paradigm was built by an increasingly authoritarian movement that was predominantly neoliberal. The new reform came from the Republican side in a partisan manner, and I think that's really why. But I mean, I've seen them. Twitter comes out and they say, wait, in the wake of them saying, hey, ban Trump. He's saying mean things. He's like cyberbullying people. He should be held to the same standard. They're like, well, we can't ban the president of the United States. So in other words, any of that kind of speech they would have loved to have banned, they just didn't want to do so. I'm wondering what threshold a person has to be at before they gain some degree of immunity from a company that really, I think I would agree at this point, needs to be labeled a public utility. I think in a perfect setup, it would be a constitutional amendment. My worry about declaring like YouTube, Facebook public utilities, Google at large or whatever, I think my worry is that smaller competitors would no longer be able to compete, because then those would be quasi-governmental. They'd probably end up getting subsidized. They'd be working even closer with politicians, as opposed to a constitutional amendment, which simply says any site of certain classifications. And I was wondering, past that, what your thoughts were on alt tech, because even if you've been banned on Twitter, there's Gab. Even if you've been banned on Facebook, there's Minds. If you've been banned on YouTube, BitChute exists. Steam, it has DTube, which I'm still trying to figure out. I'm still trying to get my way through that. PewTube existed, although I believe it's now semi-defunct. For Patreon, there's a maker support. There are sites that now compete with them. I'm wondering what your thoughts are. I know you have a Gab page, a link in the description of that, but what about these other sites as well? Alt-Tech/New Tech, I would say.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of Alt-Tech. I love Alt-Tech. Shout out to Andrew Torba. Like, he's done such a fantastic job with his site on Gab, and I've supported it pretty much from the beginning. The problem with some of these sites is they're still not protected from censorship. So, I do support them, but I also need to pay my bills, of course, and make a living. And so one example of that is Patreon. So I got banned from Patreon, unknown reasons, sort of when Lauren Southern did. And so I made a Patreon, and then I spent several months promoting that, getting patrons or whatever, and getting donations. And then the whole site got shut down. And
by the way, for people who aren't aware, I'm not even sure what explanation of that was given, because I had a page there too.
Yeah, so I never got a penny from that site, and I'm not saying that the site is shady or anything. I really just don't know what happened. But in that instance, that sort of makes me, like, I guess, fearful a little bit. Like, I don't want to spend all this time building up a new site and then it gets taken down for some arbitrary reason. I mean, the whole fact that, people can take down a donation site that's just merely for giving your money to someone you want to give money to, that isn't breaking any laws, is incredibly Orwellian. I mean, let's be honest here. They don't have to love what you're doing. I mean, when I got shut down, actually, I remember now, I said travel fund to Charlottesville. And this was before Charlottesville even happened, weeks before it happened. And they just removed my account. So I think Alt-Tech has a long way to go, but I think Gab would probably be the front runner there, and they're doing an incredible job. I know PewTube and some other sites are working on getting live streaming with super chats, which I think will be very helpful. But once again, I am positive about in the long run. I believe the truth will always win. The truth is on our side and free speech, but it is sort of frightening right now. The people I see getting banned aren't these like super extreme people, Red Elephant, Sinatra Says, InfoWars, there's way worse than that on the internet. So it does worry me, but I wanted to make a point too about, Twitter talked about banning Donald Trump. I got the little Matryoshka here straight from Russia. I don't know who's the second one. Oh, we got Melania here on the inside, but
I thought I was gonna have Hillary inside it.
Oh no, that'd be funny. It's got Melania and then Ivanka. I could keep going, but so about Twitter though is that they say that, oh, we're gonna ban Donald Trump. But then there was actually like a Bloomberg article that came out a couple months ago, and it said that Donald Trump actually accounts for, I think, over 1/3 of Twitter's profit. Like all the, like, a third of Twitter's traffic is because of Donald Trump.
I wouldn't, honestly, at this point, because they were dying off for months before that, I'm not even sure that I'd be surprised about that, to tell the truth.
Right.
Because things are so polarized about it, at least for that might be just US audience.
And that's why I don't understand these people. That's why I think, like, I'm going to go a little Alex Jones here, but I think, like, sometimes I'm like, is Twitter like some FBI program? Because if they wanted to make money, why wouldn't they have Baked Alaska and, Alex Jones promote it, or not even promote it, just allow them to be on the site? Jared Taylor, Jared Taylor is really sad to me because that dude is like super polite. He's like, of course he believes, in race realism and racial IQs. I believe in that too, but he doesn't like say anything in some like condescending, rude way. And he never even curses or says anything mean to anybody.
I can remember, I believe one of his videos was the first to go into limited state that was sort of collated on other sites. Reddit. There was a Reddit page for it. Some other sites. I think BitChute was mirroring. There was an official channel to mirror limited state videos, and then he posted the graphic, I think, on Twitter before I think he was banned.
Yeah, he was the first to get sandboxed.
Yeah, and when that happened, a video that had gotten a couple tens of thousands of views, modestly, well trafficked, but old ultimately. I think it's shot up by 300,000-400,000 views overnight. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the attempt was. I think this is why I'm optimistic. Resistance to censorship and suppression is always greater than the censorship and suppression throughout history. It builds up over time. Eventually, there's no way to censor and suppress. The real problem, I think, is on the day-to-day lives of people who get caught in the crossfire. It's like they're giving their opinion on something. Not all of those opinions are even out there, but they'll talk about an issue that's touchy. They say one word wrong and someone jumps down their throat and gets them banned off of a website, to the point where people who ultimately, they don't have staff necessarily, or they don't have a bunch of people helping them coordinate content, have to be really careful and dedicate a lot of their time to making sure that everything that they say doesn't go beyond maybe PG-14.
Yeah, well, I think this whole PC culture, I wanted to give another angle for people here, but I think this whole PC culture is dying out here. Like I said, I don't know if you're familiar with Larry Charles. He's the director of Borat, the executive producer of Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm. He just put me in his new Netflix show, and it's coming out later this year, about dangerous comedians. And I just watched Borat last night, and I'm telling you, the things I saw in that movie,
yeah,
he's talking about throwing Jews down the well, and it was funny.
Yeah, I remember that clip. If you were to put that as a YouTube exclusive at this point, no matter how many millions of people wanted to watch it, it wouldn't be deemed acceptable. At the very least, it would go into limited state and be demonetized, and it was a blockbuster.
Yeah, Styx, I actually challenge you to go watch that movie again, because I was so surprised. They're he was making fun of feminists at this feminist convention, and all the sort of red-pilled SJW stuff. He was making fun of all the SJWs.
And I can remember when it first came out, the right had a problem with it because he had the mankini or whatever it is, and there was that one scene where him and Azamat or whatever his name, that were on the bed mostly naked, and they're oh well this is promoting homosexuality, and he was trolling Ron Paul a bit there, which was funny, and Ron Paul's reaction was stereotypically funny, but it was the right wing that had a problem with it. Oh, this is irreligious, it's irrelevant, irreverent, talking down about American culture, basically. And now, if you were to take the same movie and release it today, verbatim, if it hadn't been released before, it'd be the left primarily that have a problem. The right would have a field day laughing their asses off. Yeah. Even Bruno, basically the same thing. That's sort of on the cusp of when the right and the left switched as far as authoritarianism. I mean, can you imagine? Be insane.
Yeah, no, they totally switched, the right and the left. I mean, I'm a Christian. I grew up in a Christian home, and I remember growing up to being you can't listen to these evil video games and this Eminem, this violent music, and they were so hardcore about censoring all this stuff. And then literally, I don't know when it switched, but now everything that's happening now is from the left. It's they're telling us, oh, you can't make jokes about women, you can't make jokes about Jews, you can't make jokes about whatever. And the whole Jewish thing, I think, is interesting to me, because even Jews can't make jokes about Jews anymore. Larry David, he made that joke, said, I noticed one thing in common with all the sexual abusers. They all happen to be Jewish. And he got ripped apart on Twitter.
I can remember Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks came out and said, Mel Brooks came out, of Young Frankenstein fame, History of the World Part 1, which I thought was his funniest movie. And he's comedy's basically dying. People are too PC now. Right. It was hilarious to see him say that. Because, his comedy ultimately, it's basically, by modern standards, most of it's PG. It's just a little suggestive. I think a lot of his jokes would probably be banned now. Yeah.
No, I mean, comedy. I would agree. Comedy is dead, and that's. I've talked to a lot of comedians behind the scenes. Joe Rogan, I met him out here. He's talked about how he enjoys my branch of humor. See, a lot of people in Hollywood actually like me, and they like my jokes, and they like some of the things I say. But most of them are like closeted supporters. They're like, yeah, I really like you, but I can't really talk about it. And I just think that this needs to stop, and it needs to stop now. We need to flood the gates with anti-PC stuff. You know, I miss the days where South Park just made fun of everybody. They can make fun of white people. They can make fun of Christians. They can make fun of Jews and Muslims. Everybody should be able to be made fun of. That is what comedy is. And the second that we lose that, the second that we say, no, you can't make fun of this group, or like in the Kilroy sense, they were like, oh, you can't talk about the ex-Muslims, you know, that was a whole dumpster fire in itself. But the point is, real comedy, what comedy is talking about the elephant in the room. Comedy is about being honest and saying things that are true, but maybe like kind of uncomfortable to say because of the social norms. And so,
or something that's just a farce.
Right.
But I mean, an algorithm can't pick up on sarcasm. I think that automating the flagging system on some of these sites might be in the end, the biggest problem. Because the machine's not going to know the difference between, hey, you're saying something offensive and you're responding to something offensive.
Right. Yeah. What if you're not allowed to talk about that the Parkland shooter guy whose name will not be named?
Voldemort.
Voldemort. What if you're doing something in support of Voldemort and you're like, oh, this is such a great guy, and you say it in the wrong way, and then
what if he starts a YouTube channel and he starts saying, well, this is my experience, this is what I saw, you know, my name is insert name here, and then he gets banned. Can you imagine? People would go insane.
Well, I did get some insider info that, and this is why I just got a manager and am getting on a YouTube network. So apparently, what they've told me is when you get on a YouTube network, even though I didn't want to get on one, you get immunity from the bots. You like all the bots and the mass flagging stuff. You get complete immunity from that, and you're sort of at a higher level, which I think is sort of
You mean a priority creator status, or just as part of the network?
I think it's like a MCN or something, like some. It's a certain network. They take 10% of your earnings. So I didn't want to go on there for that reason. And I don't really want people controlling what I do. But in order for me to protect my account, I'm going to have to get on this network. That's what my manager is telling me. And just being like, you just basically get whitelisted, and the bots will not be able to ban you, and certain levels of bans, because these bots, this is like low level stuff. Anybody can really do this, and your account can get caught up. So when you're on these networks, you're immune from that. I think it's incredibly disingenuous from YouTube. I mean, I think, you know, they say they believe in freedom of speech or freedom of expression and all these different opinions. So I think everyone should have an equal opportunity to get their ideas out.
Yeah. And the biggest problem I've had, since, I mean, I don't have any strikes, and I don't even, you know, sometimes I try to avoid saying things that are overtly against any TOS or whatever. I think that it's rather interesting looking throughout time at the evolution of YouTube and how the TOS has actually shifted and how it's applied. It's not even so much about the rules themselves, so much as the application. It's like, I can remember, you said you're fairly new relatively at YouTube, but I can remember, you know, basically 10 years ago, if you uploaded a video involving marijuana, even if it was informative, you showed no drugs, you used no drugs, standard disclaimer, all above board, not against TOS, you could get kicked off YouTube for that. I can remember at the time because I had a strike on one of my channels during those years for simply talking about entheogens. I was simply speaking about the spiritual use of, I think, Amanita mushrooms at the time. And they'd have got me a strike. And it was ridiculous. Now there are entire channels dedicated to showing you how drugs are used. That's fine. I can remember when having two girls kissing was not going to do well on YouTube. It'd get you kicked off. Now it's like, you know, that's basically passe. That video's like, oh, you know, a gay guy sees vagina for the first time sort of stuff. But back then, at the same time, you could have Tourette's guy or a bum fight. Nobody cared. You could swear like a drunken sailor. You could have extreme offensive content. That was A-okay. Now it's that side of the content. It's not that there's less abuse. They've simply shifted what it's applied to. And I think it's not even partisan. It's society has decided that something else is now more worrisome than drugs and lesbians. Now
Right.
it's decided that being offended, being bullied or something is really the worst that things can be.
Right. And it's all driven by this mob mentality, which I
Yeah.
think is extremely dangerous. You see people. I was incredibly troubled seeing this article about this woman at CPAC, the NRA lady, I forget her name, but they were screaming, "Burn her," at the protesters at CPAC. I mean, have we really come this far as a society where we're trying to burn people at the stake for being a member of the NRA? I'm as shocked as you are. I keep thinking, like, as far as like the Orwellian state stuff, that we've hit the edge. Like, there's no way we're gonna go back now. It's gonna boomerang the other way, and then things escalate. And in my own and people were asking me in the chat, yes, I am wearing this jacket in honor of Black History Month. Got to go see Black Panther. But I can speak from firsthand experience. I was at Charlottesville and I got attacked by Antifa. I did not attack anybody. I do not endorse attacking anybody. I went there to speak at a free speech rally and to defend our statues because I believe they're important for our history. And I got attacked by Antifa. I was sent to the hospital. They were saying I might not get my eyesight back. It was a very scary time. But I had to move addresses because people came to my house. People were going after my family businesses in Alaska. My parents and family have nothing to do with what I do. They don't even hold the same views as I hold. And people targeted them and were calling their business nonstop, calling them Nazis and all this stuff. And it was incredibly hard time for my family. So, and then I was getting thousands of messages at the same time. They were saying, "Kill yourself. I hope you fucking go blind," and like the worst death threats and stuff like you've ever seen. And I had to change my number. I got doxxed, all that stuff. So, for these leftists that love equality and free speech, they, all these things that they claim that they love, I don't believe it at all because I've firsthand been a part of it.
Yeah, and I can remember, like, I would have considered myself a leftist 10 years ago, and it's stuff like that caused me to really abandon that when I realized that the left had begun to endorse, around the Ron Paul era, it had begun to endorse the same thing I had heard from, like, John McCain or whatever. I'm like, what's the fucking point of being a Democrat or a liberal? It's the same thing. They were anti-surveillance. We're talking mid-Iraq war. I can remember 2006 or 7. I was active. My first sort of success at all was really amalgamating thousands of people together on a couple Facebook pages dedicated to opposing the Iraq war. Back then, that was before I was even really a YouTuber for the most part. I was bigger on Facebook at the time. And I considered myself a liberal in the vein of, hey, George W. is probably going to start World War III. He's gone completely apeshit. He doesn't know what he's doing. And all I see from the Republicans at the time are, hey, if you don't worship Jesus, you're not a true American. The Dixie Chicks should be banned. We need more violent video game labels. Grand Theft Auto causes kids to go crazy. I can remember that. And they left that behind, their opposition to war, censorship, and everything else under the sun. By the way, someone had mentioned in chat, Josh Smith, lol, Sticks and Baked won't mention Paul Nalen's shall not censor proposal. This is all just whining. Now, I support anyone's proposal, left, right, or center. Towards non-censorship. I don't care who proposes it.
Yeah, I would like to speak on that too. I actually had Paul Nalen on my show, and we the whole time pretty much we went over the shall not censor thing because I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first piece of legislation that I've seen, and I do like Paul. I like him a lot. It's the first piece of legislation that I've seen that is going to protect people like us from stupid bans. So I think you're a little misinformed there, buddy.
Yeah, I'm wondering exactly why people think that we wouldn't bring that up. But it's just not the main subject of the video. It's mainly about you getting arguably harassed at this point. Because I mean, look at what happened. We've got an opaque situation here. This was even funnier, where InfoWars is basically getting bullied by CNN, a competing network, nobody finds it odd at all that a corporation is attempting to use another corporate entity to suppress another corporation in the name of, oh, you know, think of the children or decency or something like that, actually going through, collating old videos from that person to try to get them banned. And there are a lot of people who are like, oh, thank goodness InfoWars will be banned off of YouTube. Like, that's going to solve anything. InfoWars is still there. If anything, that causes them, if they get banned, here's my prediction. They'll come back and they'll be 10 times stronger, because now all of a sudden every news network will be saying InfoWars and people will go check it out. Some of them will find it funny.
Right. And this is like just the beginning for this sort of stuff happening. It has the Streisand effect. So
yeah,
I must say thank you. Thank you to the people who censor me, because I probably would be irrelevant right now. Like, every time they ban me, I become more famous. Like, when the Twitter ban happened, I got so much press. So many more people knew about me that didn't know about me or took me more seriously. And then when I got Kilroy, thank you, Based Mama. When I got banned from Kilroy, like, all of a sudden, you know, I came on all these shows, and I came on Worski, and I started my own shows, and like, because I had something to talk about. And so it has the reverse effect. People are like, oh, wait, you're banned from all these different platforms. Maybe I want to hear what you have to say. And so,
yeah, they tried to do that to Stern, who ultimately, at the end of the day, is a pretty liberal individual who's slowly grinding down and approaching 70 at this point.
Exactly. And so, like, I sort of have a question for you and your audience, Sticks, is like, back to like how I was treated during that whole Charlottesville thing. It's like, did you ever see did you ever see a single piece of news or anything was like, whoa, this guy was attacked? This guy was holding a selfie stick and was violently attacked and sent to the hospital and almost lost his vision. Like, did anyone see that story ever come out?
Yeah, not really, not from the mainstream media, including, and this goes beyond the partisan. People need to understand this. Didn't see that from Fox or Breitbart or The Drudge or even Blazes of the world either.
Or even InfoWars. They didn't want.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah, InfoWars isn't even really out there. They scratched the surface of the occasional conspiracy theory. I mean, again, the whole side of YouTube does.
I mean, some people might hate me for this, but I think InfoWars is kind of cucked. Honestly, they have. I think I'm too edgy for InfoWars now. Like, so they didn't want to.
I wouldn't say that, because I've like spoken with PJW and stuff, and I enjoy watching some of it. It's just some of it goes a little over the top for me.
I like Paul Joseph Watson. I'm friends with him. But I mean, some of the other people, I think my thing with InfoWars is if you're going to be known as a conspiracy theory site and that's your thing, I'd say go all the way. Like, don't have anything off limit. That's my opinion. I get that they want to be like family friendly and they don't want to, you know, go everywhere. But I think in the grand scheme of things, they definitely do have their limits. Like, they didn't want to touch anything Charlottesville. They were like, whoa, like, and quite frankly, I mean, most people have not had an honest conversation about Charlottesville. I mean, if Antifa did not go to Charlottesville, there would have been zero violence.
Potentially.
I did not go there for violence. That's disgusting. The people going there, sure, there was some bad people on both sides, but if these Antifa black mask communists didn't show up, there wouldn't have been any violence. And there were a ton of good people there that literally just wanted to go and protect the statues. And then what did we see after Charlottesville? We saw them, taking down Christopher Columbus statues and taking down all these historical statues that had, nothing wrong.
And we've seen people caught in the middle too. Like I spoke with Shiva for Senate, Shiva Ayyadurai. And he had remember, in the wake of in Boston there, he had that little free speech get together. Now it's like 20, 30 people. Half of them are Bernie Sanders fans. They're certainly not on the right. They're further left than Clinton will ever be, and probably half of Antifa, honestly. And people descended on it, I think, after they had left, and they were like trashing the area. There were like 1,000 people chanting about kill the Nazi, basically. It's like, you honestly believe that Shiva Ayyadurai is the new leader of the Nazi party, and that these, Sanders fans, females for Sanders, basically, I think half of them were like women for Sanders, that they were Nazis too. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? It would be a perfect world if at the very least they could coordinate their violent protests.
Right. And yeah, people like Shiva. I mean, so many people that have been accused. I think Joe Biggs was there. They were calling him a Nazi. Um, and they have what is it? I was with like Irma Hinojosa. She's like Latinas for Trump. They were calling her a Nazi, and I'm like, dude, she's Latinas for Trump. And they're like, yeah, you can be a Latina white supremacist. That's a thing. And I'm like, not really. It's not really a thing.
Well, see, I would agree with that, but the thing is, like, and I've seen this phenomenon with myself too. I was much more receptive towards some of the arguments made by the left before they started attempting to suppress and ban people, because what I see is that people who aren't even by any reasonable token far right, they're not extremists. I'm not saying that you should censor or harm people for being far right, but people who aren't even in the far right are getting caught in the crossfire. They
Right.
don't even seem to realize the optics, I think, of part of that situation.
Right. But my view is, even if you are a national socialist, I don't, unless you are like advocating for some sort of violence, I don't think people should just go attack national socialists. I mean,
yeah, attacking people, political violence, wouldn't that be a hallmark of fascism?
Right.
Nobody wants to, if you point that out, then, well, you're fascist sympathizer. It's like, what are you talking about?
No, you're a logical person.
Yeah.
And in the same way, people need to look at, okay, my family comes from Belarus on my mom's side, and Ireland, but a lot from Belarus. And they would come to my parents weeping, talking about communism, about how it killed members of our family, how it starved people to death, how it ruined lives, separated people for 30 years, and they were torn away from their families because of communism. And they hate communism. They despise it. They moved to the US and they despise it. And for people out there, I believe in freedom of speech, but I see these people waving communist flags, and communism killed more people than fascism. I'm not trying to play like, who's got the bigger dick here, but the point is that I think if you're going to be so offended by the Nazi flag, you should be equally offended, or if not more offended, by the communist flag. Like put them on the same level if you're going to be so critical of those ideologies. But
I think it's because when we talk about the communist period, typically a lot of U.S. history is just geared towards, well, here's McCarthy. He was a crazy individual who said everyone was a commie. And they don't even really talk, like, you don't even hear that much necessarily about, well, we opposed Stalin because, look at this pile of skulls, or here's Pol Pot. Here's 10 sentences showing why he was the most fucked up individual who was ever born.
Well, you see the bias. Actually, I saw this Steven Crowder video. Steven Crowder's a bit too extreme. He's a little too far right for me, but I do watch him now and then. But
his trolling of the Young Turks is funny, though.
Yeah, so I watched one of his videos, and he actually was asking that Alexa, the Google Alexa thing, and it was crazy because it had this like really bad view of Hitler and all these people, but then he was like, who is Karl Marx? And he's like, Karl Marx was an amazing innovator, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, the bias is obvious. And I'm not saying that Alexa needs to have a good view of Hitler or anything. I'm not advocating for that at all. But what I am saying is I think everyone can see that there's an incredible bias towards these communists, these socialist, left-wing policies, and at the same time they're preaching this equality thing, and it's just not matching up for me.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense the way that people handle that now. By the way, a nice MAGA hat in the background too.
Oh yeah, no, I dressed up the set a little bit. This is a special occasion. So I got Ron Paul in the background because if people don't know, I am sort of a libertarian. I don't like to really call myself anything. I do like a lot of the stuff the alt-right does. But when Obama was running both years, I voted for Ron Paul, and I was like a Ron Paul enthusiast. I went to like every rally. I saw him here at UCLA. I had to like climb a tree to get in because it was sold out. And Ron Paul is sort of the guy that like woke me up on politics, on the Federal Reserve, on the military industrial complex, about like all these how we're meddling in all these foreign wars, the Iraq war, and we have no business being over there, and it's not really in our interest. And he like woke me up on all those issues. So I have that's why I have this huge thing, a shrine of Ron Paul, because I'm not like a huge fan now. I still am a little bit, but he just, I think he was such a founding father in a way for the movement we have now. Like there would be no Trump without Ron Paul. There would be none of this populism or libertarianism without Ron Paul. And I have to give him that tribute.
Yeah. Also, the Libertarian Party says, well, he's not an actual libertarian; he's a Republican. Was there anything that you wanted to say in closing here? Because I think we're running over onto almost an hour here.
Oh wow, that really flew by quick. Well,
time flies when you're having fun.
I would love to take a couple questions from the chat if there's any. So go ahead and put some questions in the chat. I'll do a couple AMA Q&A things. But I guess all I got to say is, of course, in the description is my YouTube channel and my backup channel. Make sure if you like my content, if you support free speech, subscribe to both. Make sure to like Stick's video. That helps him out too. But I appreciate you having me on, Sticks. This was a really fun conversation. And I think we are in a dark era as far as comedy, as far as free speech, saying what we want to say. Things that we're saying, things that aren't illegal, that aren't violent or hurting anybody or anything like that, and we're getting censored for them. So I challenge people, whether you're left wing, right wing, or centrist or whatever, to firmly stand for free speech, because they might not be coming for you right now, but they're coming for you next. And we've seen that time and time again. So people like me, people like Jared Taylor, in a way, have been the canary in the coal mine. And just because they're coming for us, doesn't mean they're not coming for you next. And we've actually seen this lately. I'm not a fan of Mike Cernovich or Jack Posobiec, but I realize, them too. And I think Laura Loomer got banned from Medium.
Yeah, and Cernovich too.
Yeah, and although I'm not fans of these people, I think that's incredibly frightening. Medium is literally a company where you write articles on it. Like it's like a WordPress, and it's just getting so out of hand, the things they're banning people from. It's like, okay, you just have to have, one opinion. And I think, I don't know, the US is turning into some like fucking communist state as far as our technology. And it sickens me. It just it sort of black pills me. It makes me not want to do anything, but I have to stay positive and keep hope. And really the hope for me has been that I keep making new channels or new networks, and all these, so many of my supporters follow me and make sure to go to the next place. So honestly, I can't do it without my supporters. So I have to give them the credit there.
Now, one thing says, ask him about the stream of today, when it's going to be. Are you having a stream later?
Oh, so no, I'm not. So I was supposed to be hosting Alt Hype and Spino and David Sherritt and some people talking about I forget what we were talking about, like race realism or something.
But instead you're here.
Instead I'm here. And I was also Coach Red Pill. I'm going to be on his channel soon. But basically what happened is I did have the show booked, and I had Adam Kokesh and some other people booked as well for this week. But since I have the strike, my manager has told me, don't stream on your backup channel yet. Wait until they make the decision. Like, because basically he said, if they're thinking about appealing my ban, then if I were to stream, they might say, fuck this guy. He's sort of doing a punishment evasion. So I'm told for this week to take the week off. He said I can appear. It's perfectly legal to appear on other people's channels, but as far as having like my own channel, even if it's my backup, he said, take the week off, wait till we get the decision. And then if I am banned for the next 3 months, I'll be live streaming from my backup channel.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to hear. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Good time, man.
All right. You have a good one.
All right. Peace.
Peace out.